So this is another defect in history. Then there are a number of loose ends in history. You don't know who the Jews were, the Aryans, the Dravidians, then the Phrygians, then Egypt. What was their interrelation? Now I will place before you two parallel pictures of history. One is the present history in which you are told that according to Darwin, monkeys developed into men and the men were living in forests. Then they began to imitate the sound of birds and beasts and began to blabber and created a language. Now this is the philological explanation. And according to this history, the world was created in a very disorderly manner, that there were some monkeys here, 5 or 10, then there were 100 or 200 in different patches. Then they somehow developed into human beings, we don't know when, and they somehow developed a language. This is the present history. Now, what does Vedic culture say? Vedic culture says that world didn't begin in this disorderly fashion. It was Lord Vishnu who created the world, Brahman, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras in a very systematic manner. He gave them the Vedas, and then the highest, and you know this is very scientific, I will come to that. But according to the Vedic theory of creation, and this is not a theory, you know, history is an account. Let us be very clear about what history is. History is not conjecture. History is an account told from father to son in a continuous generation, continuous line, generation to generation, from the start of the universe till today. This is history. But what is modern history? Modern history is, you may say, at the most up to Syria, Assyria, it may be an account to a certain extent, told from father to son. But beyond that, they don't know what happened, so they bring in a biologist called Charles Darwin. Now Mr. Darwin, because we have lost contact with the history before 4,000 years, will you please tell us what happened before? Now this is absurd. Supposing a history class is going on, and after a particular stage you don't know history, you won't call a biologist, you won't go to the biological section and call a biologist to supplement your history. Then again, when Charles Darwin, supposing young Charles, and he has his father. Now who tells who is your ancestor? Should the father tell young Charles Darwin who his ancestor were? Or should Charles Darwin tell his father that, oh, you know father, your ancestors were monkeys and vermin. So this is actually what is happening, that Charles Darwin tells his father that your ancestors were monkeys and vermin, instead of the father telling Charles Darwin as to who his ancestors were. Then beyond Darwin, they go to physicists. Mr. Professor of Physics, will you please tell us how this world was created? So he says, yes, there was a big fireball and it burst into pieces. And you know, we had this wonderful universe of many solar systems and Saturn and Jupiter moving in their orbits. Now I'll give you an instance. Supposing you go to an automobile factory, the Rolls-Royce factory in England, and there is a big explosion. Do you think that 10 other models of cars will be created in that? With an explosion, it will only be, even that factory which is running will be reduced to tatters, reduced to smithereens. So to say that with the explosion of a fireball, this machine within machine, sort of wheel within wheel, universe is created is absurd. So therefore, any history worth the name must start from the day of the creation as to what happened, how did creation take place. And now I tell you that against this, against the Muslim account is also all like this, jumbled up. Because after 4,000 years they don't have any record, so they call in Charles Darwin, that they take the help of physicists and somehow patch up a history. Now this is not history, this is conjecture. And this is a hotspot of clumsy conjecture. So this is what is the state of present history. As against this, we have a perfect history, and it is in three forms. One is the Purana. We have Brahmanda Puran, Matsya Puran, Vayu Puran, which actually give the history from the day of the creation in Kruta Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, Kali Yuga and so on. So the Vedic culture, because this is and this is another test, that any culture which is the ancient-most, which is qualified to tell proper history to the world, must exist from the day of the creation, because history is an account handed down from father to son. So Vedic history is recorded in the Purana. Only because we are not in power, therefore nobody is taking cognizance of it, because we have lost power. Then the second place where our history is recorded is in our Panchams, our almanacs. Whether it is a Bengali, Gujarati, Marathi, any Pancham, it will give the same consistent history. That first there was Sheshashai Vishnu, Vishnu reclining on the Shesh, that multi-hooded cobra, in a lake. He created this universe, he created Brahma. Then Brahma created 10 Prajapatis. See, it's so very scientific that they created 10 male stud bulls, we may say. Male fathers, forefathers of this universe, and Matrukas. So they are called Matrukas and Prajapatis because they are the first generation of people created by God Himself. Now people might ask as to whether this is believable. So I will tell you this is the most scientific explanation, because when you want to start a poultry farm, what do? You buy hens, you buy roosters, you buy eggs, and then only the poultry farm will start, procreation will start. Similarly, when you want to start a hockey game, football, cricket, any game, you have to have players, equipment and rules, and you simply blow the whistle and the game starts. If you want to start a drama, you begin it with full preparation. So when God started this universe, He started it with full preparation. He did not start it with a protoplasm. He created all the beings. He may have taken stages. For instance, first one day He might have created the earth, another day He might have created the vanaspati, the trees and plants, then He might have created the animals, then He might have created man. But God began this universe as a full-fledged ongoing concern, just as we start a drama or a play or a poultry farm. So this poultry farm of the world, and the initial stock had to be provided for God by God Himself. So this is a very scientific explanation. And then we always show Brahma giving the Vedas. Now about the Vedas I will give you a very scientific explanation, that the Vedas are really given by God. Because supposing you go to the bazaar to buy an automobile or a frigidaire or a radio set or a TV set, the manufacturer of that machine always gives you a technical book of that machine. A machine is never sold without a technical book. So when God entrusted this complicated, illimitable, unfathomable universe and very perplexing in its mechanism, He gave a book, and that book is the Vedas. So Vedas have a very scientific explanation, and because the language of the Vedas is Sanskrit, therefore Sanskrit is a God-given language. This is how we prove it. Just as in geometry you prove one theorem, from that you deduce another theorem. So this first theorem, that Vedas were given at the beginning of the universe as a codified technical book of the complex mechanism of this cosmos. And because that is in Sanskrit, therefore Sanskrit was a God-given language. Now this Vedic culture and Sanskrit language continued for millions of years. You may say thousands. If somebody's imagination boggles down that this humanity can't be ancient, I have no quarrel with it. I say, all right, you whatever maximum limit you can place. But what I say is, from the start of the universe, it was a very systematic, thought-out start. Because just as I said, by accident you cannot create this magnificent universe with its rules about magnetism, electricity, gravitation and so on. You cannot create it haphazardly, as Darwin explained that there were patches of monkeys and they developed into human beings and so on. You can't do that. Any machinery, and this complicated machinery has to be thought out properly by some superhuman being. So Vedas say, and Vedic culture says, that superhuman power created this wonderful universe with all full preparation. And therefore, as we see today, elephants, camels, germs, worms are being created and being carried away. The same it began at a certain stage. So this Sanskrit language and Vedic culture, and that history we have in our Purana, that is Kruta Yuga. Now, with this theory, There are three advantages of this theory. First of all, you get a consistent, continuous, single source account of world history from the day of the creation to our own, which was not available in the present history. Secondly, you get answers to all your puzzling problems, and that I am coming to now. And the third, you can correlate everything, the loose ends as to who are the Dravids, who are the Judaïs, Jews and so on. They all these loose ends of history get connected in this. So, now why is the first yug called Krutayug? It's not called Satyayug. People are mistaking. Satyayug is not the real word, it's a derivative word. That at that time they were godly men created fresh by God. So they were hefty, handsome, truth-speaking, honest, etc. But the real name of the first yug is Krutayug. Kruta means ready-made. Because the first yug was created ready-made by God, therefore it's called Krutayug. Then Treta Yug, then Dwapar Yug, we have a history of who were the Harishchandra and Ram and so on. And then we come to Kali Yug, the end of Dwapar Yug and the beginning of Kali Yug. And at that time this Kaurav-Pandav war took place. So from the start of the universe to the Kaurav-Pandavas, there was a continuous succession of Vedic monarchs, and they were sovereign monarchs of the entire world. So till the Kaurav-Pandavas, for millions of years, Sanskrit was a world language, and there was a world culture which was a Vedic culture, which existed all over the world under a Vedic sovereignty. And because this Mahabharata war was a very great devastating war, a nuclear war and a biological war, you get actual descriptions of it in Mahabharata and the Purana. Therefore there was such destruction that they say only 5 Pandavas lived. But only 5 Pandavas lived means among the people who can be named, among the leaders who can be named. But others, the nondescript crowd, there are many. So all these people fled, and there was a long period of chaos. Because supposing there is a riot, what happens? All the schools are closed, everybody lives in a house, there are bazaars are closed, there is curfew, nobody is able to go out, there is no security. So similarly, because of the Kaurav-Pandav war, which is a biological war and nuclear war, there was a big gap when all Gurukul system of education came to a standstill, all administration came to a standstill, and all pravachans and religious discourses on Vedas, Upanishads, Mahabharata, Ramayana, Mahabharata came to a standstill, and people fled in terror. And because of uninhabitable conditions, they fled to different regions. So the people who fled to England, the first generation which came to England, and Greece and Italy, Germany, Holland, Belgium, India, etc., were people who had learned Sanskrit, chased Sanskrit from Gurukul. But after that, because there was lack of education for say 1000 years or 800 years, whatever it was, there was a big gap. And now the Pandav war, Kaurav-Pandav war, was, what historians have calculated from the planetary positions mentioned in Mahabharata and Gita and so on. It took place about 5700 years ago. And we have a very fine corroborating factor, corroborating detail in the Passover year of the Jews. The Passover year of the Jews is 5747 today. And 5747 is the exact, almost exact year in which Pandav war is supposed to have, Kaurav war is supposed to have taken place. 5747 years from today. So these 2000 years and 3100 or 200 years before. So after this Kaurav-Pandav war, when people, the whole administration was shattered and they dispersed to different regions, they were speaking Sanskrit, and then there was a big gap. Therefore what happened? Everything broke down. The Kaurav-Pandav state, one world state, was broken into pieces just as after World War II. British Empire broke up into pieces. India, Pakistan, Ceylon, Burma and so on, Singapore, Malaya. Similarly, after the Kaurav-Pandav war, the Kaurav-Pandav, the Samrajya, the empire, United World Vedic Empire broke down. And its pieces were the Syria, Assyria, Babylonia, Mesopotamia. So this is how I connect the present history which is being taught in schools and colleges with this ancient history. And now we can explain what Sura, Babylonia, Mesopotamia mean. You know, in our Purana, the struggle was, just as today the struggle is between America and Russia mainly. communist versus capitalism. Similarly, the struggle between that time, in those times, was between Sura and Asura. It is given in our Purana. So Sura and Asura became Syria and Assyria.
What?
And Babylonia was Bahubaliniya. Bahubali was one of our kings, one of our Vedic kings. Babylonia is Bahubaliniya. And Mesopotamia is Mahishapattaniya. Mahishi means king, queen. So Mahishapattaniya became Mesopotamia. So all these names have their Vedic significance because these were bits of the Vedic Empire. Similarly, the united Vedic culture became shattered, and then whosoever was a Bhakta of Devi, whosoever that is in his family, if there was puja of Devi going on, another of Krishna, another of Ram, they became different sects. Because they were cut off from a common Vedic culture, common discourse and so on. So all these people who went to different regions, somebody, the Phrygian goddess, now there is an actual book written by all these Europeans. They think that the pre-Christian Roman world was made of several Oriental religions. They call them Oriental, but they call them religions. They were not religions. They were broken pieces of the common Vedic culture. Somebody worshipped Osiris goddess, somebody worshipped Isis, somebody called it Phrygia, somebody called it Venus, and somebody Lakshmi, Shiva, Ganesh and Ram and Krishna and so on. Therefore, at the beginning of the Christian era, that is about 180, all the so-called Greek sects were Vedic sects. Christians were Krishnans. They were worshippers of Krishna. Then Essenes were worshippers of Ishan, means Shankar. And Sadduceans, these are all the names of Greek sects. Sadduceans were Sadhu Jana. Then Stoics were Stoics, that is given to meditation. Stavana is meditation. Then Samaritans were followers of Smriti, Nara Smriti, Manu Smriti, Yajnavalkya Smriti. So Samaritans, Sadduceans, there was a sect called Melanesians. Melanesians were Melanchas, what we call Melanch. So Melanesians, Sadduceans, Samaritans, Essenes, Stoics and Christians, these were several sects. Now among these sects, there was a keen competition. Everyone was and the other was Judaism. Judaism is Yaduism. Just as Yashwant Singh becomes Jaswant Singh, or Yogi is pronounced as Yogi. Therefore Yadus were pronounced as Jadus. Our Jadhav, the surname Jadhav is from Yadav. And in Saurashtra, this Jam Sahib of Navnagar, etc., they call themselves Jadeja. Jadeja means Yaduja. Yaduja becomes Jaduja. So just as Jadeja is a derivative of Yaduja and Jadhav, similarly the Judaism was Yaduism. And these people now, see, the Jews call themselves the chosen people of God. They are right, because they were Yadukula, the Yadu Vansh of Shri Krishna. That's why they call themselves chosen people of God. And in Mahabharata it is stated that when some missiles, unspent missiles after the Mahabharata war, the Yadav children were playing pranks with those missiles, they exploded. And when they exploded, there was a big haakar, big destruction, devastation, so the Yadavas left. So that is the Passover. Passover from where? From Dwarka kingdom. Because they were the Yadukula people, people of Shri Krishna's clan. And when Shri Krishna died, and when Dwarka sunk into the sea, and there was great nuclear devastation, tribe after tribe, because some 1,000 people decide today that let us go, then another 1,000. So the 12 tribes, which they say, were groups of Yadus who left Dwarka one after the other. And therefore the 12 tribes of Israel. And now Israel, what is the spelling? ISR, that is Ishwara. And AEL is Alay, Ishwara Alay. That is the abode of God. So Israel is the Sanskrit word, Ishwara Alay. Then the language Hebrew, the Encyclopedia Judaica, they give the derivation as Hebrew. They say, Ho is the abbreviation of the divine name. Now what is it? Hari. Hari is the name of Krishna. And Ho is the abbreviation of divine name. And they don't know what Bru, but Brute means speaks. Hari Brute is the Hebrew. The language which Hari used to speak, that is the language which Krishna used to speak. Then Jerusalem. Recently, the Jews thrust themselves into Jerusalem and said, this is our capital, and Arabs have no right to it. Now, this was about perhaps 10 years back. So, our government of India, because they think that Arabs are their friends and they have no diplomatic relations with the Israelis, which is a wrong policy. But it's a Congress policy, and India is being ruled by the Congress power. So, our foreign minister, P.V. Narasimha Rao, as soon as the Jews occupied Jerusalem, he advised his Indian representative at the United Nations to speak in favor of the Arabs, that Israel has no right to enter Jerusalem, it is only the Arabs to whom Jerusalem belongs. So I wrote a letter to Mr. P.V. Narasimha Rao. I said, historically, your claim that Jerusalem belongs to the Arabs is wrong. Because you know what is Jerusalem? Jerusalem's original name as given in Encyclopedia Judaica is Yerushalayim, Y-E-R-U-S-A-L-E-I-M. Now Jerusalem being pronounced as Jerusalem is very plausible, because Yogi is pronounced as Jogi, Yuga Yuga is pronounced as Juga Juga, Yashwant Singh is pronounced as Jashwant Singh. So Yo and Jo are interchangeable. Therefore Jerusalem being pronounced as Jerusalem is quite plausible. So the original name was Jerusalem. Now you write Jerusalem, Y-E-R-U-S-A-L-E-I-M. This is Yadu Isha Alayam. Yadu Isha means the Lord of the Yadus, and Alam is the abode. Wow. Now how did Yadu Isha Alam become Yadu Isha Alam? It's very easy. Because when you say Sari, a Westerner will write Sari, S-A-R-I. When you say Ghoda, he will write Ghora. So for every D, Westerner substitute R. So when you wrote Yadu Isha Alam, instead of D they made it R. So it becomes Yeru Isha Alam. And Yeru Isha Alam being pronounced as Jeru Isha Alam. So if at all anybody has a right to Jerusalem, it is the Bhaktas of Shri Krishna, because it is the city of Krishna. And Arabs who want to destroy Krishna images, they have no right. Anybody who hates Krishna, who hates the idol of Krishna, has no right to Jerusalem. So the Jews are really the followers of Lord Krishna, who were separated from India 5,747 years ago. And that is the exact year. And that is a very important clue of history, because these people who are separated, supposing you have come from India, you perhaps will remember in your era that my forefathers came at such and such a date, and you may calculate your era from that time, from the time you were separated from India. So similarly the Jews are calculating their year 5,747 from the time they separated from the Dwarka kingdom. And that is an exact tally with the year of the Mahabharata. So this is how all history, all the regions of history get connected. Now among the Jew sects, I explained to you Judaism. So among these sects in Greece, which I named, was a Christian sect. And among all these sects, there was a keen competition as to, because everybody, likes that my sect should be accepted all over the world. So among these Christians were lucky to get a letter of introduction to Emperor Constantine, and this was in about 312 AD. So up to 312 AD, Christianity was a non-entity, almost 25 to 30 followers in Rome, 25 to 30 followers in Jerusalem, 25 to 30 followers in Corinth. So they were all spread out in very little groups. And then there were these Phrygians worshipping goddess, people worshipping goddess of Phrygia, another Osiris, Isis, and all these Oriental sects. So somehow these Christians, the group in Rome, they got a note of introduction to Emperor Constantine. Now see, you analyze the word Constantine. C-O-N-S is Kans, and Tantine is Daityan, Kansa Daityan. So the very fact that he had a Mahabharata time name of Kans Krishna, Kans the ruler, Kansa Daitya, shows that Roman civilization is entirely Vedic civilization. So these people went and said, sir, we will be very much honored if you kindly come to our weekly discourse, weekly meeting. We meet a few people, we discuss about religion and spiritualism. So now in pre-Christian times, Sunday was a holiday. Sunday is not a Christian holiday, it's a pre-Christian holiday. And because it was a pre-Christian holiday, just as we generally gather on holidays, because we are serving at different places, we have our businesses, so whenever we gather for our dharmic rituals, we generally choose a holiday. So in pre-Christian times, because Sunday was a holiday of the Vedic world, therefore this group used to gather together for a charcha, that is discussion, religious discussion, dharma charcha, like theosophists. Therefore Sunday and dharma charcha, that is church, are all pre-Christian Vedic words connected with Vedic culture. So when Emperor Constantine was invited, he came 1 week, he came another week, and then he became one of them. And then he said, now come on, I will give my entire army at your command and force everybody in Europe to become a Christian. So Christianity was imposed by terror and torture as Islam was imposed. And that is why Portuguese and the Spanish people, you know how cruel were they. They went and massacred the entire that Inca, Maya civilization. And now, you know why this reveals another disposition why Muslims and Christians cannot be real historians. Because when the people who are interested in massacring entire nations and entire communities, they also massacred the entire history, cut it off. That is why all that millions of years of pre-Christian history has been just cut off, as of no consequence. All kafirs, pagans, heathens, not worth mentioning, not worth studying. So this is what is happening in this world. And therefore Christians, though they might appear to be very thoughtful or very considerate, they are not real. If you go to the roots and say what was the civilization before, they don't want to. They want it to be covered, suppressed. So this Emperor Constantine placed his entire Roman phalanx at the disposal of the new sect of which he had become a follower. And now I come to the history of the papacy. And I might tell you that the germs of this Vedic history are even found in the Bible. You will be surprised. You open the first chapter, the first page of the Bible, and it says the first sentence, that at the beginning of the world, the Spirit of God was floating on water. That is Lord Vishnu.
What?
In the Sarovar, in the lake. So this is the first sentence of the Bible, that at the beginning the Spirit of God was floating on water. We call him Narayana, Nira Ayanam Yasya. One who is placed on Nira, that is water, the eternal waters. And on that there is a cobra, coiled cobra, and on that Vishnu is reclining. So the first sentence of Bible. Then they say, in the Bible I show you how they carry the germs of Vedic history. And this is very useful for us to convince the Christians that look at those who are considerate enough or thoughtful, who are ready to look into this. The second is that at first there was the word. We say at first the word was Om. This was the word. So Bible says at first there was the word. Then the third sentence not in the first chapter, I'm telling you, these sentences are in the Bible. The third is that the world was of one speech. I say it's right, it was Sanskrit. The world was of one speech. So these three sentences, and you might find any more, but these are very crucial sentences in the Bible which confirm the Vedic finding, the Vedic tradition, that the world began with Om. At that time Lord Vishnu was in the great lake, floating in the great lake, and the first language of the world was Sanskrit. So these Christians, Emperor Constantine, at that time this group of 25 or 50 original Christians, they had a bishop of Rome. Naturally their Dharma Guru, some leader, he was called the Bishop of Rome. Now this is one of the greatest blunders of history. That even Christians, they don't try to see where papacy began. How did papacy begin? Because nowhere is it said that Christ came to a particular place and installed Pope, the one person as a Pope. It's not that. Christ never began papacy. So what happened was that when Emperor Constantine began to spread Christianity with terror and torture, he swooped on the Veda Vatika. That Vatican was Veda Vatika, Dharma Vatika, Ananda Vatika. Vatika is a hermitage. A bower and a hermitage is called a Vatika. We call it Dharma Vatika, Ananda Vatika, Ashram Vatika. So this Veda Vatika was the seat of our Papa Harta, Papa Hanta, Papa Ha. So Papa Ha was the name, that is absolver from sin. Papa Harta, Papa Hanta. So Papa Harta, Papa Hanta, absolver from sin, Shankaracharya of Vatika, Veda Vatika. Because that was a prestigious seat, and this Bishop of Rome had no, because he was the leader of only 25 people. So Emperor Constantine slew the Hindu Pope and installed the Bishop of Rome as the Pope. That is how the papacy started in 312 AD. Now will any Pope have the heart to go into this history? He won't have it. So we will have to do this. We will have to tell the world that this papacy was not begun by Christ. Otherwise it should have been begun by Christ. Because he is the supreme pontiff of Christianity. But he was not installed by Christ. He was installed by this Emperor Constantine. And because you see the amount of importance that papacy had in those days, that they had to obliterate the Bishop of Rome, his office, and place him as the Pope. And this Pope, as I told you, it's a word of Sanskrit derivation, Papa Harta, Papa Ha. And that's why his duty is exactly absolving from sin. Then he used to worship the images of Shiva because he was a Shankaracharya. And has the projector come? Projector, Mr. Ramesh? So, I have got slides to show that there are several Shivalingas and images of Shiva in the Vatican Museum now. Now, this is the general thread of history that I have delineated before you from times immemorial to our own. Now I will show you how all the details that we have at present, they exactly fit in and corroborate this particular thesis. Now let us first take our samskara, our sacraments, Vedic sacraments. There are two important Vedic sacraments which stand out from all others. One is Vratabandha, that is the thread ceremony. And the other is Vivaha, that is Pani Grahana, we call it. Pani Grahana means taking the hand, bride, groom taking the bride's hand in marriage. These two still persist in Christianity. Now, the thread ceremony is called baptism. You add one S, Basptism. It is Bashpita Sma. Bashpita, Bashpa means water. Bashpita Sma means we have been anointed with water. What we call Snatak, one who holds a degree, etc., is called a Snatak because he has bathed, his mind has been washed. So Bashpita Sma is the word, but that S has been removed and it has become baptism. That's a Sanskrit word. Bashpita means anointed. And if you, there are pictures in ancient pre-Christian books, etc., which show the holy thread, people wearing the holy thread and people holding the, wearing the tilak, etc., on their foreheads. And I have got slides to show. Therefore, this pre-Christian world was a Vedic world. And then the next samskar is Pani Grahana. Recently I contributed an article which is to be published and which will be published in a weekly in London called New Life, because it is published by our Gujarati Mr. Patel. It's going to come in. Sibyl Patel. In that I said that Christian church weddings are inadvertently Vedic. That is the heading. Now I will show you how they are Vedic. Our word, Sanskrit word for marriage is Pani Grahana. Pani means hand and Grahana means taking. So when the groom takes the bride's hand in marriage, that is the ceremony. Now as you go along the road, you say, you meet a friend and you take his hand, hello. So that is Pani Grahana, isn't it? You actually take somebody's hand. But that is not wedding. Wedding is waiting. which is accompanied by Vedic mantra. So the word wedding comes from Vedas. That it is a pani grahana, which is a wedding, that is, it is accompanied by Vedic mantra. Now this English people will have to be told that the word wedding comes from Vedas, and it is a pani grahana, it is taking the bride's hand in marriage, accompanied by Vedic mantra. Now, even in Europe today, they are using this same phrase. Pani grahana means taking the hand. They say giving the bride's hand in marriage, taking the bride's hand in marriage, offering the bride's hand in marriage. This is an exact translation of pani grahana. Now the next thing, they call it wedlock. Wedlock is a lock put by the Vedas that you too have to live in this house. We lock it from outside. This is wedlock. A lock put by the Vedas. Then the third term which they use is matrimonial. This is a Sanskrit word. Matru manala. A relationship undertaken where the mind, the thought is to gain motherhood. Matru is motherhood. Mana is mind. Matru manala is a relationship undertaken to gain motherhood. Then conjugal. Conjugal is C. Don't pronounce it as K. The C should be pronounced with its alphabetical pronunciation Sir. Because in center, civic, civil, C is pronounced as Sir. Therefore, if you now in committee, C-O-M-I-T-T-E-E, if you pronounce C as Sir, it is Samiti, which is a Sanskrit word. Samiti, they are using the word Samiti but calling it committee. So in conjugal, because C and Sen, so C-O-N is Shan. And Yugal, J-U-G-A-L, I told you, Yashwant Singh is pronounced as Yashwant Singh. So it is San Yugala. Yugala means a couple. And Shan means for a holy purpose. A couple joined for a holy purpose is Shan Yugala, which they are pronounced as conjugal. So you see conjugal, then matrimonial, taking the bride's hand in marriage, wedding, wedlock, these are all Sanskrit words. Now I'll tell you how husband is also a Sanskrit word. Because in pani grahana, when the groom takes the bride's hand in marriage and a kankan is tied, then that is hasta bandha, that is husband. Hasta is hand, bandha is bound. So hasta bandha, a person whose hand is bound so that he may not run after other girls anymore. Because his hand is bound, he is called hasta bandha, that is husband. Then bride, vadhu is our word. Vadhu becomes pradhu, and pradhu is being spelled as bride. So that is really bride. Then this we say marital knot. It is called marital knot because actually the clothes of the husband are tied to the wife's clothes in the Vedic ceremony. And this is still done by Christians. When Prince Charles was married to Lady Diana in July 1979, one of the duties ascribed to some Dutch or Duchess was to tie their clothes. That is the marital knot, because an actual knot is tied. Therefore, these Christian church marriages are inadvertently Vedic. They don't know that the entire ceremony is on them. You know, the Christian bride has a veil, her face is veiled. Now this is a Vedic custom. When we present a bride, she is properly veiled. She doesn't come like this Amazon. She comes with all modesty. So this veiling of the bride is again a Vedic custom. And this is what they are observing. Then they say giving away the bride. Now in modern Western society, a girl, modern Western girl will never tolerate the idea of anybody giving her in marriage. She said, I will marry anybody I like. She even tells her father or mother point blank. And yet if you go for a church wedding, there has to be some elderly relative who will formally give away the bride. This is Kanyadan. Kanyadan is a very important ceremony of bridal, this marriage culture, this marriage festival or marriage ritual. So you see how the entire Vedic system of marriage is proof that there was Vedic culture. Now we come to another Gurukul system. Because whenever, when there was Vedic education throughout the world, it was there in Europe. And just as I showed you that the entire wedding terminology, the marital terminology is Vedic Sanskrit, there now you will see that we are still using the Gurukul terminology in modern education, in all your education, in any European country. Now for this you have to remember that what we call cow in Sanskrit, an Englishman calls cow. That is, cow becomes cow. Cow is being pronounced as cow. So what we call Gurukulam, they are calling curriculum. CULLM, it's exactly Gurukulam. Simply instead of C you substitute G and it is Gurukulam. So that the word should really be pronounced as Gurukulam because CURRICULUM. So that is Gurukulam. Then the word syllabus. Syllabus is Shala Bhyasa. Shala means a school and Abhyas means study. The course of study is syllabus. That's a Sanskrit word. Then the word primary. Primary is Prathamari. That tha has vanished. It is Prathamari. Prime Minister is Prathama Minister. Then we come to the word matriculation. Now matriculation, you will be surprised to know that nobody knows its meaning, why there are so many syllables, matriculation. No. It is because it is Sanskrit term matrukuleshu na. Means his education has come to such a standard that hereafter he won't be able to live with his mother. For higher education he will have to go out. So this matrukuleshu na has become matriculation. Then the intermediate is antar madhyastha. Inter is antar, media is madhya, et is tha. That is the 2 years sandwich between BA and matriculation or intermediate. Now the bachelor degree is a very funny degree because all those who, now all of us here have bachelor degree, but all of us are married. So why shouldn't the university have at least some provision that you may have been a bachelor when you passed the examination? But now please return your diploma, we will issue another saying that you are married man of arts or married man of science. Then with the women, it is still curious that in the English language even an unmarried woman is never called a bachelor. If you ask a woman, are you a bachelor, she will laugh at you that you don't know English. An unmarried woman is either called unmarried or virgin, but never a bachelor. And yet our universities which are the highest seats of learning are stamping every woman Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Science, Bachelor of Commerce, Bachelor of Law, Bachelor of Medicine. Is it not an absurdity from the dictionary point of view to call a woman a bachelor? But this is what universities are doing. Why? Because in the Vedic Gurukul everybody was a brahmachari. So that brahmachari is still being called a brahmachari, though the Gurukul system has vanished. Yet the brahmachari degree. And see, brahmachari, bachara are there in bachelor. So that bachelor is almost the word brahmachari. So that shows that Vedic Gurukul system existed everywhere. Then the master is the mahastara. Stara is level. Maha is big. One who has gone to a bigger level is mahastara. So you see how the entire education system is still has the shell of the former Gurukul system. Now because the ancestors of Christians were all Vedic people, therefore entire traditions and terminology of Christianity is all Vedic and Sanskrit. For instance, Christianity word itself is Krishnaniti. And in India, the Karnataka people, that is Kannadigas and Bengali people, they still, if they name a person as Krishna, they will call him Krishna. A Krishnappa, in Kannada they will say. Then Bengali will say that Kesto Mukherjee was one of the cinema actors. That Kesto is Krishna. So similarly in Europe also Krishna was called Krishna. And these people, when they separated themselves, when this small group of ambitious Krishnan people broke away, then they took the name, that is, they continued the pronunciation Krishna. Just as the Sikh terrorists today are trying to break away from Hinduism and say that we are no longer Hindus, we are something separate. Because they are ambitious, they want a separate homeland, they want to be prime ministers, ambassadors and so on. So similarly these people, Peter and Paul, were the terrorists of their times, like the Sikh terrorists. They were ambitious people, they wanted to cut away Christianity and make it a force by itself. And therefore Peter and Paul were both hanged, and Peter's body was even exhumed and again insulted and humiliated and rebuked. So they were not saints. They were terrorists of their times. So this now you see in American Hollywood films, Ben Hur, etc., they were shown as though the Christians were very weak people. If they were slapped on one cheek, they used to put the other cheek in front. Now this is because they have turned all Christians. Therefore they are misled. Supposing these Sikhs who are trying to break away from Hinduism, if they become Khalistanis, if they have a state of their own, they will say that the real terrorists were Indira Gandhi and Rajiv Gandhi and not us. We are very weak people, very religious people. So this is how the entire Europe which has become Christian is misrepresenting history, and entire Muslim world of West Asia which has become Muslim is misrepresenting history. That we were the people who were wrong, but it is just the opposite. And this has a parallel even in communist countries. That the countries of Eastern Europe which have come under the clutches of Russia, now they dare not talk about their Habsburg rulers of Austria, etc. They have to keep quiet. Because it has been dinned into their ears to disown all their previous culture as it was feudal and it was bourgeois and we are ashamed of that culture. So just as a communist of Eastern Europe will say that we are ashamed of that culture, we are now communists. Similarly, Christians and Muslims have been made to be ashamed of their pre-Christian and pre-Muslim culture. And this is unhistorical, to suppress history and misrepresent history. So the traditions and terminology of Christianity, the word Christianity is Krishnaniti. And Christmas, now you know they write it as X''Mass. And they say Xmas means Christ's birthday. Now you can question them that X doesn't mean Christ and Mass doesn't mean birthday. How come Xmas is Christ's birthday? So it is Dashama Mass. X is the Roman numeral 10 and Mass is the Sanskrit word for month. We say Chaitra Maas, Adhik Maas, Shravan Maas, Bhadrapad Maas. So it is the 10th month, and this is corroborated by the fact that September, October, November, December are Saptambar, Ashtambar, Navambar, Dashambar. Ambar means the heaven. September is the 7th part, Ashtambar is the 8th part, November is the 9th part, December is the 10th part. And the same, in English language, Sapta is 7, Akta is 8, Octo, Nava is 9, nonagenarian. And Shatra Shanta is 10, Dasha, Dasha is 10, decagram they say. Now here you see the incongruity that these, according to names, these months are 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th. Then how is it you are ranking them in your calendar as 9, 10, 11, 12? This is a mathematical mistake. This has occurred because according to Vedic culture, when Vedic culture was being observed everywhere in Europe, then the March was the first month, because according to our almanac, according to Vedic almanac, our year changes, Panchang change about somewhere in March, about March 22, March 25, and then September comes 7, October 8, 9 and 10. So that is why those names September, Ashtambar, November, Dashambar are a proof that Vedic system, time was measured according to Vedic system, the year New Year was calculated according to Vedic system, and the year began in March. Then the January is Januarius. In Roman times it was called Januarius. Only the English people have agreed it to January. Januarius is Ganaraya Isha. Ganaraya the Ganesh. So this month was named after Ganesh. Februarius was named after Pravara. Pravara means Rishis. So all the former names were Sanskrit names. And the entire time calculation. Second is the malpronunciation of the word Kshana. If you say SCON or CSON, that will be Kshana. That D has been unnecessarily added. Minute, if you remove Ni and pronounce it as Mita, then Mita is measured. So second and minute are Kshana and Mita. Then this mathematics of 60 seconds is 1 minute and 60 minutes is 1 hour. These Vedic mathematics, because we say 60 vipalas are 1 pala and 60 palas is 1 ghati. So this 60-60 mathematics is of the Vedic times. Then Hora. Hora means 1 hour, which is hour. The word hour is a malpronunciation of the Vedic word Hora. Then the day. Day is our din. The word day is a malpronunciation of the word din. And the weekly days are Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Is exactly being followed all over the world. Muslims, Christians, without questioning, everybody after the day allotted to Saturn comes the day allotted to sun, then the day allotted to the moon. So this is because there was uniform Vedic education. Otherwise today if you try to force anything Indian, they say no, we are our own, why should we accept your system? But this system shows that the days of the week were followed all over the world. Then the month, as I told you, every month was called Mass. Christmas, Michaelmas is really the month, not the day. They are misunderstanding a month. And Christmas is Krishna Mass. That is why at the stroke of 12, because 12 is the birth time of Krishna, midnight, and with the ringing of bells. So the celebration which they do with ringing of bells at the stroke of midnight is Krishna Mass. Now why is it called Krishna Mass? There are two reasons. One, because it is the month of the longest nights. Krishna means dark. 22nd December is the longest night. And therefore, we very eagerly they waited for Uttarayan, the northern declination of the sun. Therefore that was a very important day. And a great festival used to take place, that we are finishing the long month of long nights and beginning the month of days growing longer. And therefore it's called Bada Din in Hindi, because the day becomes Bada. Gradually it begins to become bigger and bigger. So what happened that after the Mahabharata war, Krishna was the only person who emerged as the leader and the unquestioned god of both the sides, because the Kauravas were all destroyed and Pandavas were dejected because they had lost all their relatives. So among them Krishna emerged as the only god. And therefore the big celebrations after the end, because the Mahabharata war ended exactly in December. As you might know, Bhishma Pitamaha was waiting for the Uttarayan. He was waiting to die, he was an Ichchamarni, he wanted to die when the Uttarayan began. So that shows that the Mahabharata war ended in December. And when it ended in December and Krishna came out as the hero, then his birthday, he was celebrated as a god. And a festival, it had a double significance. The end of the Mahabharata war and the reigning of peace on earth, and Krishna emerging as the hero and he being celebrated. So therefore it was Krishna Mass, because of the long nights and because of Krishna. And therefore it is celebrated at 12 o'clock with the ringing of bells. Now the Christians themselves admit that 25th December is not the birth date of Christ. Then 12 o'clock at midnight is not the hour of his birth. And the first day of 1 AD is not the day of his birth. So Christians deny all these three details. That Christ was not born on first, they say perhaps he was born in 4 AD or 4 BC or 63 BC. There are various conjectures because there was no Jesus Christ. So there is a chapter in this book that every detail of Jesus Christ is baseless, groundless. They don't know the date of, because it is very easy to calculate. If Jesus Christ was born on 25th December, your year should have begun on 25th December. How can it begin on 1st January? That means 1 AD, if 1 AD begins from 1 January and Christ was born 1 week before, then it means that Jesus Christ was born 1 week BC, which is absurd. And supposing he was born on 1st January of some, or he was born on 25th of December of some year, in which your calculation has begun from 1st January, you are beginning to calculate 1 AD from 1st January, then your calculation has gone wrong by 51 weeks. So the 1 AD calculation has gone wrong either by 51 weeks or at least by 1 week, which is an absurdity. If Christ had really been born, this absurdity wouldn't have been there. And more funny thing than that is that they say that he was perhaps born in 4 BC, somebody says he was born in 63 BC, so he was never born, so there was no Jesus Christ. If you write JESUS, J small, and CHRIST, and then below it you write RESUS and CHRISN, then you will realize how Jesus Krishna becomes Jesus Krishna. Because I is small and J small are almost identical. J is slightly turned, I is not turned. But there is another proof that in Old Latin, I and J were interchangeable. Just as Yashwant and Jaswant are Y and J are interchangeable. Similarly, I and J were interchangeable. And therefore, Jesus Krishna was called Jesus Christ. So the entire story of Jesus Christ is a made-up, concocted story by this group of small, ambitious Christian group who wanted to use her power and become a great force in the world. So I told you how Christmas is Krishnamas. Then there is also a book written by an American. He is a firm believer in Christianity. But he says that the image of a child used to be worshipped even before he is, I think, Sinclair from America. He has written two books, The Secret Life of Jesus and some other book about Jesus, Mystic Life of Jesus. Louis H. Sinclair, his name is. Secret Life of Jesus and the Mystic Life of Jesus. He has said that even before Christmas, a statue of a child used to be set up and worshipped. So that is obviously Christmas. And then the entire setup that they show at Christmas time of Christ's birth is exactly like what we do of Gokul, of Krishna's birth time. Then about his birth, they don't know whether he was born at Nazareth, some say Bethlehem, some say Nazareth. Where he was buried, they don't know whether he was buried in Jerusalem or Kashmir. So the entire life of Jesus is all concocted. Now recently we celebrated our Sarvapitri Amavasya before this Navratra, a day devoted to all the remembering and paying homage to all our ancestors, Sarvapitri Amavasya. Now the Christians do exactly that. They call it All Souls Day. All Souls Day is an exact translation of Sarvapitri Amavasya. Then the Muslims, so you see how these so-called Christian festivals are all Vedic festivals. This Xmas festival is Krishna Mas festival. This the festival that I told you just now, what is it? All Souls Day is our Sarvapitri Amavasya. Then they have an Ash Wednesday on which they apply ash to their foreheads. And their baptism is our third ceremony. And their marriage ceremony is all Vedic. Now I will tell you something about Muslims. That even Muslims, because their ancestors were Hindus, therefore their entire terminology and traditions is equally Vedic and Sanskrit as it is with the Christians. Islam is the Sanskrit word Ishalayam, that is the abode of God. Just as Israel is Ishvara Allah, so similarly Israel's neighbor Islam is Ishalayam. Ishalayam and Ishvaralayam is the same thing. So Islam is the word Ishalayam. And then the Kaaba temple was our central shrine of Lord Vishnu, in which there was a reclining Vishnu and there were 360 images. So if you refer to Encyclopedia Islamia, they give under the heading Kaaba and Makkah and Muhammad and so on, that Muhammad's family was the Pujari, was the priest of that temple. And now after they have captured it, it is supposed to be the seat of Islam, but formerly it was the seat of Vedic culture, where people from all over the world used to go for pilgrimage. Then there Eid ul-Fitr. Eid ul-Fitr is Eid ul-Pitr. Eid means worship. Agni Mide Purohitam is our Vedic stanza. Eid means puja, worship. So Eid ul-Fitr means the day reserved for the worship of the ancestors. So all this Eid is the Sanskrit word Eid, means day of worship. So every Eid is a festival. Eid ul-Zuha. Zuha means to sacrifice, to offer oblation in the fire. Zuho means Zuhuva, Zuhuma, they say in Sanskrit. So Eid ul-Zuha means the day of sacrifice. So thus you see how the word Islam and all its festivals are Vedic constructed. Now I have shown you how time is still calculated from the split second to the year by the Vedic time. Even the word time, Samay became Tamay, and Tamay is being written as time. Because Vismay becomes Tismay. What we call Vismay in Sanskrit, they are pronouncing that Tismay. That's why Samay became Tamay. So you have Tamay, you have the time calculation, you have the marriage celebrations, you have the thread ceremony celebrations, you have the Gurukul system of education, You have the traditions and terminology of Christianity, you have the traditions and terminology